Good afternoon. This is the sky over my apple tree. In middle America. I have checked it out and I have no planes expected overhead for a little while. I have mixed skies. There are some low-level cumulus clouds. There are some high-level cirrus clouds, and there's even some alto cumulus. You can't really get a good depth of field here, but I've got a little bit of everything going on over my head. Absolutely no contrails. Just a beautiful day. The reason I am making this video is people keep it's like they hold it against me. I don't have a chemtrail video. I don't know how I can take pictures of things that don't exist, but this I think is more along my line anyway. One thing that I like to do, and if anybody has ever asked for sources and has seen my source list, you know it is varied. It goes all over. It is actually quite extensive, and that's just part of the list I use to make my decision whether chemtrails exist or not. So I like to go to the source. If I hear that a particular report is done by such and such a school or such and such a scientist or organization, I go to that website and I try and find as much as I can about it and the people who have done it. There's a certain video that's played over and over and over again. It's been on YouTube, I believe, 3 times this week. Once it is attributing it to a national news agency. It's not. It's always the same video. It is a news story from KSLA News 12. KSLA is the local news TV show that is in Shreveport, Louisiana. Last time I checked, no national centers were in Shreveport, Louisiana, or anything. It's even hard for me to say. And I found out that the reporter on this particular video piece still works for him, and so I wrote him an email. I have an interest in all things science, particularly weather and clouds. While I was casually clicking around on YouTube, I found your piece on chemtrails. It is reposted often, as much as 3 times this past 7 days. I immediately noticed you had misstated the number on the results as 6.8 instead of the printed 68.8. Then recognized that the unit wasn't the same as stated in printing either. I was already on red alert, considering the sampling process was a great deal less than optimum. No mention was made how any ground level pollutants would be accounted for at the very least. As I researched all over the web further, I have found that the mistakes made were numerous. Here's a link to a complete debunk, and I have a link to a particular page in the website called Contrails Science. I have posted that particular one on the sidebar. My email continues. So I was wondering what you as the original reporter thought of it all. Was there a retraction ever made, or a correction? Why or why not? As a science-minded person, I am known on YouTube as a disinformationalist. Yep, this word isn't in Webster's. Disinfo agent, paid shill, and lots of other names and insults for completely speaking out against the report for the reasons I've stated above. It's become something of a hobby for me to try and get people to look at clouds and the atmosphere and how it works, not to look to conspiracy theorists for their science and news. The debate continues on YouTube with new impetus with the flu outbreak, which is currently suggested as being spread by chemtrails. So, as the current leading authority on the reality of chemtrails poisoning our skies every day, what do you think now? And if you do answer back, may I quote you? Sorry about the angle change there. My dog is playing. Well, I got a response today that's an answer back. Thank you for the email. Yes, I did make corrections to my first report, which originally aired almost 2 years ago now, after quickly realizing my very embarrassing mistake. I was not happy with myself. Unfortunately, the first version of my report got out to the internet before I could make the corrections, and the wrong version is shown repeatedly. There are some salient points to the piece, but your issue about ground level pollutants is a great one as well. Unlike some who may stubbornly stick to a report even when portions of it turn out to be wrong, I am only interested in the truth. My feeling is, and maybe you'd agree, that if such aerosol mixes were created and loaded into jets with either a separate, independent dispersal method other than the exhaust, or actually in the fuel itself, somewhere, somehow, you'd expect someone to talk. I have not heard that yet. I also interviewed the scientist who originally patented what some believe was a precursor to so-called chemtrail technology. He's a very kind, helpful man who could not have been more helpful. He says he knows nothing about any such conspiracy. Again, as with the previous graph, that neither proves nor dispels such a conspiracy. I am awaiting more facts. And ironically, this is not the only investigation that shed light on everything from Bin Laden's FBI poster to martial law and the role of the clergy in such a scenario. But for whatever reason, chemtrails has become the most popular. Below is a sample of some of that work. And while I will not be putting it on the sidebar because these are not chemtrails, he does give me links to 5 new and different conspiracy theories that are being bandied about right now. Thanks again for taking the time to contact me, and feel free to pass along any information if you'd like. Jeff Farrell, KSLA News. So the reporter who did that initial report knows it is in error, several errors. If the reporter knows it's an error, how can anyone say it's true? It is completely debunked, and it really should be dropped as proof. It doesn't show anything about chemtrails, except that some people will believe in